Welcome back to my channel, and thank you for joining me today as we delve into the latest dramatic developments surrounding the storyline of Willow, Michael, Sasha, and Drew in the world of ABC General Hospital. In what has become an extremely complicated web of relationships, betrayals, regret, and heartbreak, these characters are now facing consequences that they never could have imagined. Please stay with me as we explore every layer of this emotional situation, focusing on the main points in as much detail as possible. Willow was once happily married to Michael, and together they were raising Wiley and Amelia, embracing the dreams of a close-knit family. However, over time, stress and personal conflicts wore away at the foundation of trust between Willow and Michael. What ultimately shattered this trust was Willow's affair with Drew. When Michael discovered Willow's infidelity, the pain cut deep, leaving their marriage on thin ice. The sense of betrayal was too heavy to ignore, and as each tried to navigate the emotional fallout, the cracks within their relationship widened. Willow was consumed by regret, feeling that her moment of weakness had fundamentally damaged the love she and Michael once shared. Michael, deeply hurt by Willow's betrayal, found himself grappling with conflicting emotions. In the midst of this turmoil, a tragic accident led to Michael suffering serious burns. Facing a long and grueling recovery process, Michael traveled to Germany for specialized treatment. In the meantime, Willow and Michael's marriage reached its breaking point. They mutually decided to finalize a divorce, an ending that neither had truly desired but saw no alternative to. As Willow struggled to come to terms with the dissolution of her marriage, she also ended things with Drew. She realized that her relationship with Drew, which had been born out of confusion and longing, was not fulfilling the void in her heart. Instead, it had only dragged her deeper into guilt and self-blame. In the aftermath of her separation from both Michael and Drew, Willow was overwhelmed by remorse. She mourned the loss of the family unit she had cherished and lamented the fact that Wiley and Amelia would no longer have the stability of both parents under the same roof. The children had become innocent bystanders to a cycle of heartbreak that had started, in Willow's mind, with her own betrayal. At that stage, she believed she was solely responsible for destroying the marriage, convinced that her affair with Drew was the ultimate catalyst for her family's collapse. Yet, fate had more revelations in store for Willow. It turned out that hers was not the only betrayal in her marriage. Willow discovered a shocking secret: Michael himself had been unfaithful, having a one-night stand with Sasha. This information hit Willow like a tidal wave. Sasha, who Willow had considered a friend, had been with Michael in a moment of drunken abandon. The relationship between Michael and Sasha was never fueled by ongoing love or deep emotional attachment. According to what Willow learned, it was purely one night of poor judgment that resulted in unforeseen consequences. The biggest consequence of that night was Sasha's pregnancy. While Michael and Sasha had not planned on conceiving and did not see themselves as a couple, the existence of this child changed everything. Willow, already battling her own guilt about betraying Michael, felt an even greater sense of fury and devastation upon discovering his indiscretion. She could not believe that Sasha, a person she had trusted, would betray her in such a personal way. The unborn child only intensified Willow's anger, making her feel that her entire life had been built on illusions. Unable to contain her emotions, Willow decided she needed answers. She arranged to meet Sasha face to face, seeking an explanation and potentially some form of closure. Sasha, aware of the damage that had been done, was flooded with guilt. She tried to apologize, explaining that she and Michael were both extremely inebriated at the time, and in their compromised states, they lost control. Sasha insisted that there was no ongoing affair, that it had been a single lapse in judgment with dreadful repercussions. However, Willow was in no mood to accept apologies. The moment she saw Sasha, her rage boiled over. She demanded that Sasha terminate the pregnancy, seeing the unborn child as a painful reminder of the double betrayal. Sasha was horrified by Willow's demands, and even though she felt tremendous remorse for her role in the situation, she did not want to make a decision about her pregnancy under such hostile pressure. The conversation escalated rapidly into a heated argument. Willow's words grew harsher, laced with anguish, as she unleashed her feelings of betrayal, anger, and devastation. She verbally lashed out at Sasha, calling her names that cut deep, and she refused to entertain the notion that there might be a more measured response. As the argument intensified, both women found themselves at a precipice of anger they could not control. Their confrontation soon turned physical. Willow, in her rage, lashed out at Sasha, and the two ended up in a struggle. In the chaos, Sasha stumbled near a flight of stairs. Willow, blinded by sorrow and fury, pushed her. The force caused Sasha to tumble down the steps. Time seemed to slow as Willow realized the potential severity of what had just happened. She rushed to Sasha's side, horrified by the possibility that her fit of anger could have inflicted serious harm on Sasha and especially on the unborn baby. Emergency services were quickly called, and Sasha was taken to the hospital. Her condition was precarious, and everyone waited with bated breath to see if she and the baby would survive. Michael, learning the news from afar, was devastated. Though his own emotions towards Sasha were complicated since it had been a single night of intimacy that produced this pregnancy, he was still concerned for her well-being and that of the child. Willow was left to grapple with immediate remorse. The moment her temper had cooled, she realized the catastrophic outcome of her actions. She felt sick with guilt, acknowledging that her anger had spiraled so far out of control that it led to actual physical harm. At the hospital, the doctors did everything they could to save Sasha and her baby. Sasha survived her injuries, but she received the heartbreaking news that the baby had not made it. The trauma and injuries sustained from the fall had resulted in the loss of her pregnancy. In addition, doctors discovered complications indicating that Sasha's chances of conceiving in the future might be drastically reduced or eliminated altogether. This information was like a final twist of the knife, doubling the pain and grief Sasha was already experiencing. Only a few years prior, she had suffered another miscarriage, making this second tragedy even more emotionally devastating. The cumulative effect of these losses shattered her spirit, and she sank into deep despair. For Willow, the impact was immediate and crushing. She had not only discovered Michael's betrayal but had directly contributed to the death of his unborn child. Racked with guilt, Willow questioned how she could have let her emotions spiral so far out of control. In the blink of an eye, her anger had led to a physical altercation with disastrous repercussions that could not be undone. On top of her personal torment, Willow also faced potential legal consequences for what had transpired. Authorities could bring charges against her, as Sasha's injuries and the loss of the baby resulted from a violent confrontation. Willow recognized that the narrative of an accidental fall would be challenged in court. If witnesses or evidence suggested that Willow had intentionally pushed Sasha, she could face a significant prison sentence. Now, Willow must confront her own conscience and the justice system. The mother who once tried to keep her family intact was left with nothing but heartbreak, regret, and the possibility of incarceration. She felt responsible not only for her fractured marriage and the pain inflicted on her children but also for robbing Sasha of what might have been her last chance to become a mother. Each day, Willow grapples with the consequences of her rage, replaying the moment of that fateful push in her mind. She wonders how she could have acted differently, how she could have channeled her intense emotions into something less destructive. Michael, still in Germany receiving medical treatment for his burns, learned the tragic news from afar. His reaction was complicated by a storm of feelings. He was outraged at Willow for her violence towards Sasha. At the same time, he was burdened by guilt for having put Sasha in that position in the first place. If he had not been unfaithful, Sasha would never have become pregnant, and the confrontation that cost his child its life might never have happened. Yet, overshadowing all of these emotions is Michael's own heartbreak for the child he will never meet, a baby he never intended to conceive in the first place, but whose existence had already begun to shape his thoughts about fatherhood. Now, the finality of the loss weighs on him like a crushing burden. Sasha, meanwhile, is not only grieving the loss of the pregnancy but also wrestling with the prospect that she may never become a mother in the future. She cannot escape the reality that the confrontation with Willow, though unexpected and tragic, could have been avoided had she and Michael never crossed that line. She is haunted by the memory of lying at the bottom of the stairs in pain, uncertain of her own survival and clinging to faint hopes for her child. Despite everything, Sasha does not harbor pure hatred for Willow. Her emotions are so entangled in sorrow and self-blame that anger is only one piece of a much larger puzzle. She vacillates between regret for having slept with Michael and remorse for the pain that everyone has gone through since that fateful night. Drew, for his part, is also tangled in this web of heartbreak. Having been the catalyst for Willow's initial betrayal of Michael, he is forced to witness the damaging effects of unfaithfulness from a new angle. Though Willow has ended their affair and parted ways, the fallout has reverberated across multiple lives, highlighting how a single lapse in judgment can yield tragedies far beyond what anyone might anticipate. Drew feels sympathy for Willow, but he is also hurt and confused as he sees the widespread devastation that seems to have followed in the wake of their relationship. He wonders if there was something he could have done differently, some path he could have taken that might have spared these people he cares about so much. Wiley and Amelia, the children at the center of this fractured family, stand to be impacted for years to come. If Willow faces prison time, her presence in their lives could be minimal or entirely absent for a significant period, leaving them without the maternal figure they once depended on. Meanwhile, Michael's recovery in Germany further disrupts any semblance of normalcy in their routine. Family and friends are trying to fill the gap, but the shadows cast by betrayal, loss, and regret loom over everyone. Each adult hopes to protect these innocent children from the harshness of this reality, but inevitably, they will sense the tension and grief that have overtaken the people closest to them. In the broader context of Port Charles, rumors swirl and reputations hang in the balance. Friends and acquaintances of Willow and Sasha are left reeling, wondering how such a tight-knit community could suddenly be at the center of such a violent and catastrophic event. Some sympathize with Willow's heartbreak, recalling how devastated she was after losing Michael's trust and her sense of family. Others condemn her for letting jealousy and anger escalate to physical violence that resulted in the death of an unborn child and possibly robbed Sasha of motherhood. Likewise, people view Michael with a mixture of pity and reproach. While they mourn his loss and understand his medical struggles, they also see how his own poor decisions contributed to this crisis. Meanwhile, Sasha's tragedy prompts both compassion and disapproval from those who cannot comprehend how a single night of drinking led to such monumental fallout. For Willow, each new day presents an unrelenting sense of regret. She replays the moment on the stairs in her mind, anguishing over how 1 second of fury can alter the trajectory of multiple lives. She can scarcely believe that she demanded Sasha terminate her pregnancy, an action that stands in direct contrast to Willow's previous values. She sees that she allowed her heartbreak to consume her, driving her toward an irrational and destructive response. The memory of how she lashed out with hateful words, goading Sasha to do something drastic, is an echo in her head that won't fade. She recognizes she behaved in a way that was not only out of character, but also inexcusable. In therapy sessions, if Willow chooses that route, she might unravel the layers of pain that led to her violent outburst. She could discover that her remorse over the affair with Drew, her anger at Michael for his betrayal, and her protective instinct over her children all came together in that single explosive moment. The question remains, will she find the strength to forgive herself and potentially seek forgiveness from Sasha, Michael, and everyone else involved? That path is fraught with difficulty, especially given the looming legal consequences she may face. Legally, Willow's predicament is precarious. Even if she claims that she had no intention of causing serious harm, eyewitness accounts and the severity of the outcome might influence prosecutors to file charges of assault or even something more severe. The hospital records will show that Sasha lost her baby as a result of the injuries sustained in the fall, and while it may be difficult to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Willow intentionally sought to kill or harm the baby, the tangible reality is that the baby did not survive and that Sasha's future fertility is severely compromised. The legal system might decide that the gravity of these consequences warrants a trial, leaving Willow's fate uncertain. If Willow does go to trial, it will undoubtedly be a source of further anguish, especially if Michael returns from Germany to testify, or if Sasha is called upon to recount the event from her perspective. The entire ordeal is likely to be traumatic for all involved parties, as they're forced to revisit some of their most painful memories. The media in Port Charles may have a field day, and people will inevitably take sides, complicating the emotional landscape even further. From another perspective, Michael might feel torn between supporting Sasha, who was carrying his child and is now suffering immense emotional and physical trauma, and acknowledging Willow, the mother of Wiley and Amelia, who may face prison time for her actions. His own culpability in the entire ordeal weighs on him daily. He might question whether he should have been more honest from the outset, whether revealing his indiscretion with Sasha earlier could have prevented Willow's extreme reaction. He may also blame himself for being absent in Germany when Willow discovered the truth, believing that if he had been there, he might have intervened before the confrontation escalated. Sasha's recovery will also be a slow and emotionally grueling process. She might struggle not only with the physical aftermath of her fall but also with profound feelings of grief and hopelessness. The knowledge that she likely cannot conceive again will be a cruel reminder of what she has lost. That grief may extend to a sense of betrayal by her own body, which failed her at a moment she had never even planned for but had begun to accept. The maternal longing that might have stirred upon discovering her pregnancy could persist, leaving her with a void that is not easily filled. As we step back and observe this situation, we see how a series of betrayals and rash decisions can converge into a perfect storm of loss and regret. What started as a faltering marriage devolved into hidden affairs, fractured trust, misplaced anger, and catastrophic violence. No one in this circle is left unscarred. Each character is tasked with the seemingly impossible challenge of picking up the pieces of a life they once took for granted. In a place like Port Charles, relationships can twist and turn in unexpected ways, and redemption is often sought in the most unexpected corners. There is still a slim hope that through immense introspection, sincere apologies, and heartfelt attempts at restitution, Willow and Sasha could find a path, no matter how narrow, towards a kind of reconciliation. Whether that is even possible given the tremendous weight of the tragedy is an open question. Willow may long to seek forgiveness, but the harsh reality of what happened to Sasha's baby and fertility might prove insurmountable. Sasha's trust is shattered, her body is scarred, and her dreams of motherhood have been torn from her once again. Forgiveness in such dire circumstances is rarely a simple matter. Nonetheless, human resilience can be surprising. If Willow takes accountability for her actions and demonstrates a readiness to face the legal and moral consequences, there may be a place in the hearts of those around her to at least acknowledge her remorse. Similarly, Sasha, though deeply wounded, may discover that clinging to bitterness only prolongs her suffering. This doesn't mean she will simply absolve Willow or Michael of wrongdoing, but perhaps, over time, she can find a measure of peace that does not revolve solely around anger or despair. Michael, too, has his own journey of reckoning. He is confronted with the guilt of his indiscretion, which seeded events that spiraled far beyond his control. His child with Sasha would have been an unplanned addition to his life, but the moment he learned of the pregnancy, a sense of responsibility and even paternal affection likely stirred in him. Losing that child in such a horrifying manner could haunt him for a very long time. While he may direct blame toward Willow for pushing Sasha, he cannot escape the realization that if he had remained faithful to Willow, none of this might ever have happened. Thank you for tuning in to this comprehensive exploration of the dramatic events involving Willow, Michael, Sasha, and Drew in ABC General Hospital. The complexity of these overlapping storylines underscores how a single choice can reverberate in ways no one expects. Continue to follow along as the characters face a future none of them could have predicted, shaped by irreversible decisions and haunted by the memory of a tragedy that will stay with them forever. While we have covered the main points as thoroughly as possible, stay alert for new twists, legal implications, and emotional confrontations that are sure to arise in the coming days. Again, welcome back to my channel. And thank you for accompanying me on this deep dive into one of the most heartbreaking developments Port Charles has seen in a long time. We have learned about the issue in extensive detail, from the root causes to the catastrophic outcomes. Keep watching, as the emotional, legal, and personal aftermath of this tragedy unfolds, testing the resilience and moral compasses of every individual involved. Will there be accountability, forgiveness, or lasting resentment? Only time and the unfolding drama will tell.